Welcome back, everyone. I have some new stories for you today. Here's the first one. My marriage changed overnight. For most of my adult life, I believed I was in a solid, committed marriage. We built a home together, raised children together, and survived the usual challenges that come with a long relationship. There were harder years and there were easier years. But through it all, I thought we were still standing on the same side of things. I trusted that what we had was real and stable. That belief shattered the day my husband sat me down and told me he needed to talk. He said he had been carrying something inside for a long time, that loving only one person had never felt natural to him, that he believed he was capable of loving more than one person at once, and that holding himself to a monogamous life felt like a constant pressure. He compared it to being trapped with no way to release what he was feeling, like something inside of him was building up and it was about to burst. I didn't even know how to respond at first. I had never imagined this kind of conversation. I had assumed we shared the same understanding of commitment and marriage, but there he was, explaining that he felt limited, that he needed something different, and that he couldn't keep pretending otherwise. I was shocked, but I also loved him. I loved the family we had created and the life we shared. I didn't want to be the reason he stayed unhappy. So even though the idea was completely unfamiliar to me, I said I would try to understand it. I told him I was willing to read about it, learn about it, and consider what it might mean for us. He promised it would be equal. He said I would have the same freedom as him. He said this wasn't about replacing me, just about exploring what love could look like. Not long after that, he told me he had already met someone. I hadn't even had time to sit with the idea of this new way of living. I hadn't processed what it meant for our marriage or for our family. I hadn't learned anything about how this kind of relationship worked, and suddenly there was another person in the picture. He mentioned her name and explained that they talked sometimes and that he was thinking about going on a date with her. I remember feeling like the floor dropped from underneath me. It felt rushed and overwhelming, like I was being dragged into something I hadn't agreed to yet. I tried to be honest. I told him I needed time. I said I wasn't ready for him to start seeing someone else right away. I suggested setting up some basic rules and boundaries while I adjusted. I thought that was reasonable. He said he couldn't explore who he really was if there were such boundaries. He said that these limits would make it impossible for him to feel free, and at the same time, whenever I tried to take him up on his offer that I could explore too, he reacted badly. If I mentioned talking to someone or meeting for coffee, he became visibly upset. He would accuse me of not being clear enough about what I was doing. He acted like he was on the edge of breaking down. Eventually, I stopped trying. His distress felt louder than my confusion. His needs seemed more urgent than mine. So I stayed home and tried to hold myself together while he continued building a connection with someone else. The person he was interested in was someone we saw often in daily life. She avoided me whenever we crossed paths. He kept telling me nothing serious was happening and that he didn't even know what she wanted. But later, the truth came out. She cared about him and struggled with the fact that he was married. That made me feel like I was the obstacle. Like the only thing standing between them and whatever they wanted was me and my marriage. Sometimes my husband admitted that he understood why I was uncomfortable. Other times he brushed off my feelings and defended her instead. He said I was overreacting. He said I was misinterpreting things. I started doubting myself. I started wondering if I really was being unreasonable. Eventually, I told him I couldn't live with that specific connection continuing. I said I wasn't asking him to change who he was, but I couldn't handle that specific situation. He agreed. He said he would cut contact and they would stop communicating. But then small things started to feel wrong. His routines shifted. He stayed out longer than usual. He became protective of his phone. He would turn notifications off or leave the room to answer messages. My anxiety grew, and I hated that I felt the need to check. And one day, I did. They were still talking. Messages were hidden and conversations were erased. When I finally confronted him with what I had seen, he said he hid it because he was afraid of how I would react. He claimed he was trying to prevent me from doing something impulsive. He was more troubled that I had looked at his phone than he was about lying. He told me that my reactions were the real problem, that I needed to get control of my emotions. After that, something inside me collapsed. I wake up exhausted. I I go through the motions because I have to. I take care of the children, I handle most of the daily responsibilities, as well as our finances, but everything feels heavier than it used to. Tasks that were once simple now feel overwhelming. I can't focus, I can't rest properly. My body feels tense all the time and my mind never stops racing. It's like I'm watching my life slowly unravel while still being expected to hold it together. Somehow, I've started blaming myself. I tell myself that if I were more open, this wouldn't hurt so much. That if I were calmer, he wouldn't need to hide things. That if I could just stop feeling wounded, everything would be fine again. I don't recognize the person I've become. I used to feel grounded. I used to feel secure in who I was and what I had built. Now I feel hollow, like I'm just surviving from one day to the next. My marriage no longer feels like a safe place. It feels like something fragile that could break at any moment. I don't know how to find my way back to stability. I don't know how to rebuild trust when secrecy has already entered the picture. And I don't know how to protect my heart while still trying to hold on to the life I've spent so many years creating. All I know is that my world feels divided into two parts, the life I thought I had and the one I'm living now. And somewhere between those two versions of reality, I'm trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be. The first thing that hits my head is like, that dude is an asshole. You don't start a normal relationship with someone and then come out and be like, hey, I think I'm polyamorous. 10 years or however many years they have been married, and they also have children on top of that. And just overall, the dude seems like he's so fragile, lost, he doesn't even know what is going on with himself. And this poor woman seems to be just trying to pick up the pieces. Always a tough one though, when it's a family and they have children. Getting a divorce and trying to move on versus trying to stay and fix it. Both seems tough from her perspective. Alright, let's move on to the next one. I exposed my manager's behavior. For a long time, I thought I had a good relationship with my manager. We had known each other for years before she ever became my boss, and because we were close in age, it felt more like a friendship than a professional connection. We were very different people, but we managed to get along, and I never had a personal reason to distrust her. Even though I heard mixed things about her from others, I really wasn't bothered by it because I didn't experience that myself. That changed when she stepped into a leadership role. I started noticing patterns that made me uncomfortable. She was quick to criticize, especially in public spaces like group chats. Once, she humiliated a young worker over a small mistake in front of everyone. What could have been a quiet correction turned into something that felt more like a personal attack. It didn't sit right with me, but I kept quiet, thinking maybe I was reading too much into it. Over time, I learned more about what had happened before she became a manager. People told me she had driven the previous manager away and that someone who used to be her close friend had moved far away after working with her. None of this was proven to me directly, but the stories added to the uneasy feeling I was already carrying. She wasn't just strict, she seemed to enjoy having power over people who were supposed to be her friends. Then one night she sent me messages complaining about two of my coworkers. The tone wasn't constructive or professional. It wasn't about improving their work or solving a problem. It was personal. After complaining for a while, she said she would explain more later, but the damage was already done. I felt trapped in a conversation I never asked to be a part of. I didn't want to be the person she complained to about people I worked with every day. I didn't respond much. I didn't know what to say. All I could think was that if I was one of those workers, I'd want to know that my manager was talking badly about me behind my back. The next day, I worked a shift with those two people she had criticized. I hadn't planned on saying anything, I just wanted to keep the peace and stay out of it. But during our shift, they started talking about the situation on their own. Without knowing what I had seen, they explained what had happened from the other side. Their story was calm, reasonable, and very different from the picture my manager had painted. I couldn't hold myself back. I told them she had been messaging me about them. One of them asked to see the messages. I hesitated. I knew it could escalate things, and a part of me wanted to protect the relationship I still had with my manager. But another part felt like keeping those messages secret would mean I was taking her side and defending her. So I sent the screenshots, trusting him when he said he wouldn't turn it into a huge issue. I went home hoping things wouldn't go bad. Well, about that. The next morning, I got a message saying that another coworker had filed the formal complaint. The screenshots had been shown to the higher management. They asked if I could come in and talk about what I knew. I couldn't make it that day because of my other job, but I said I was willing to speak later. Part of me felt relieved that someone had finally taken action. Another part of me felt sick with guilt for being involved at all. My manager stopped messaging me. I checked my phone and realized she had removed me from social media. My messages weren't going through either. It didn't take much imagination to understand what had happened. She had been told where the information came from. We had been friends before she was my boss. We had shared things about our lives, we had trusted each other. Now I had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, but I feel like I had no real choice in it. She was the one that put me in that position, even though I never wanted to be a part of it. I had to do what was right. Still, I wonder if I could have handled it differently. Maybe I should have confronted her directly. Maybe I should have refused to get involved at all. But I also know that if no one had spoken up, her behavior would have continued unchecked. I never wanted to be the person who breaks trust, but I also don't want to be the person who protects someone simply because they were nice to me while hurting others. Protecting someone who is being an ass to other people is a bad thing. Though maybe, if you are good friends, you should probably try and talk to the person and see if you can get her to change on her own. Yeah, I probably would have tried bringing it first to the person though. Like, talk to her about it. Maybe she doesn't even realize she's being so mean. Give her a chance to change before doing something like this. Alright, let's move on. My wife's betrayal. We were together for more than a decade. Soon it would have been our anniversary, but instead of celebrating, I'm sitting here trying to understand how she walked away from me and the life we built. Last year, she decided she wants to quit her corporate job. She said she wasn't built for that kind of work and that it made her miserable. She was crying constantly and talking about how the job added nothing good to the world. I didn't fight her on it. I told her I would do whatever I had to so we could be okay. I even said I would work nights delivering food if that's what it took, and I meant it. I just wanted her to feel better and not to hate her life. Not long after, she resigned and she found a job posting in Dubai. It was for something she had always wanted to do, something she had talked about for years. I told her to apply. I said if she got it, we would figure out how to handle being apart. When she actually got accepted, she hesitated and asked if I was really okay with it. Around that time, I had been diagnosed with a chronic illness and had almost died from it earlier in the year. Holy moly. She felt guilty about leaving and blamed herself for not realizing how sick I was sooner. I told her to go anyway. I said it wouldn't be forever, just a couple of months, and then we would figure out what comes next. She told me she loved me and how thankful she was for everything I had done for her. That sounds a bit like saying goodbye permanently. She talked about our future and said we would have kids once she came back. I felt proud of her and scared at the same time. I knew from the past that long distance was hard for her. At first I tried to be supportive and positive. I stayed home and kept telling her how proud I was of her and how much I loved her. But after a couple of months, things started to feel wrong. She forgot my birthday. She didn't want to talk on Christmas. She didn't call me on New Year's. I felt abandoned, but I didn't want to be the negative one, so I kept pretending everything was okay. A few days after New Year's, she told me she was thinking about divorce. She said I had been distant and cold, even going back to the previous January. That was when I had been extremely sick and hospitalized, with doctors saying there was a real chance I might not survive. Hearing her describe that time as me being cold felt unreal and unfair. That night I didn't sleep at all. I just cried and stared at my phone. The next morning she said maybe we could try to work on things. I felt like I could breathe again. I decided I would do everything I could to fix us. I sent her flowers every few weeks just so she would know I was thinking about her. I tried to plan video call dates and games and little activities so we could still feel connected. I honestly believed we were just in a rough patch. About a month later, she said something that really shook me. She asked if I had ever thought about what would happen if she met someone else who liked the same things that she did. I said of course I had thought about it, but I trusted her. I believed in us. A week later, she said there was someone else, but that he didn't know how she felt. She said he was just a good friend. Then another week passed, and suddenly the story changed. Now he did know and had known for months, but he was supposedly being respectful and waiting for her to decide what she wanted. Valentine's Day came, and I tried to make it special even from far away. I set an alarm so I could send her breakfast and flowers. We had a video call that morning. Near the end of it, she told me she had slept with him a month earlier. I broke down and ended the call. After that, everything felt different. She wasn't the same person anymore. She talked about how free and happy she felt over there. She even said she was cutting off her own family because her friends in Dubai told her she was better off without them. It was like watching someone I loved turn into a stranger. Looking back, I feel like I supported her through every step of her journey. I stood by her when she hated her job. I encouraged her to chase her dream. I stayed behind while she went across the world. I kept believing in us when things started to fall apart. Now I just feel used and thrown away. She was my first serious relationship, my first everything, and now she's also my first real heartbreak. I don't even know how to start over after something like this. I gave her loyalty, patience, and support, and it still wasn't enough. That sucks, man. When you put a lot of time into a person and it turns out to be the wrong one, it's a shit feeling. But hey, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you move on. You get your shit together, you find yourself again, and choose better next time. Alright, let's move on to the next. The Sesame Bagel Incident. Last weekend, my son had a sleepover at our house. It was him and 3 of his friends, and my wife was out of town, so I was in charge of the whole operation. Normally I wouldn't mind cooking breakfast for everyone, but with 6 people in the house, my son, 3 friends, my daughter and me, I knew it would be a lot. So the night before I decided to order a breakfast catering box from a local place we like. The box came with 12 bagels, a few types of cheese, cheese, butter, and a selection of sliced onions, cucumbers, and tomatoes. I thought that would be plenty for everyone. I had selected 6 plain bagels, 3 onion, and 3 everything. Also, an extra bagel comes, but you can't pick which one it will be. Turns out the extra bagel was sesame. Monday morning, I picked up the box and carried it inside. I called everyone down for breakfast. My daughter came first, and I told her to pick a bagel. She chose the sesame one and started putting butter on it. Then the boys came down. One of my son's friends immediately noticed the sesame bagel my daughter had and asked why there wasn't any more. He asked why my daughter got it, and I explained that she came downstairs first. He didn't like that answer and said it wasn't fair. I told him there were plenty of bagels and he could take any one he liked. He then asked why I only ordered 1 sesame bagel. I explained it wasn't intentional, it was just the extra bagel, which was random. This kid kept going on and on about how he wanted a sesame bagel. He argued that it wasn't fair that my daughter got it and that he didn't. He argued that it wasn't fair that my daughter got it and not him. I tried to redirect him, telling him to pick another bagel. He refused, insisting he didn't want plain, onion, or everything. I tried to reason with him, saying that a plain bagel is essentially a sesame bagel without seeds. He said that didn't make any sense and kept asking me to go back to the store and get him a sesame bagel. At that point, I realized the situation was getting ridiculous. There were literally enough bagels for everyone plus extras. He wasn't going to starve, he just didn't want to compromise. So I decided to call it what it was. I told him to stop acting like a brat, take a bagel, or go to school without breakfast. He protested immediately, saying I had no right to call him a brat and that I was supposed to feed him. I explained that I already had. There were bagels, cream cheese, butters, and vegetables. He literally could choose what he wanted. He just refused to eat. In response, he scooped some cream cheese onto a napkin and ate it with a butter knife, as if to prove a point, rather than just eating one of the bagels available to him. He was upset because he wanted a specific thing and he wasn't getting it. Later that day, his mother called to get my side of the story. She was upset that I had called her child a brat and that I had let him go to school hungry. I tried to explain the context. There were plenty of bagels and plenty of other foods for him to eat. He wasn't forced to starve, he had options. He chose to act out instead. She argued that I had no right to call him a brat, no matter what, and that I should have ordered more food for everyone. I tried to explain that I had planned for 6 people and even ordered extra bagels plus sides. She was still upset, guess she didn't get the answer she was looking for, and even added at the end that my wife will hear about this when she gets home. Interesting threat, sure, knock yourself out. Man, the kids nowadays, all this gentle parenting and stuff is really starting to get things out of hand. Like, these kids nowadays are so spoiled, they think the whole world revolves around them. When I was a kid growing up, these things didn't happen. If you misbehaved or you were trying to act like a spoiled brat, there was a slipper flying your way, okay? Which may not be ideal, but also we knew where the boundaries are. We had some decent understanding on how to act, unlike the kids nowadays. Okay, let's move on to the next one. My fiance's behavior is making me rethink the engagement. My fiance and I have been together for about 4 years. We've lived together for 1 and we recently got engaged. Things have usually been pretty solid between us, nothing perfect, but nothing that felt like a deal breaker either. We had just come back from an overseas trip for a wedding. The trip itself was fine, but on the way home I got slammed with some kind of flu or a stomach bug. It wasn't just feeling tired or a little nauseous. I actually passed out while standing in line at the airport and had to be checked by paramedics. They said I could still fly, but I was already feeling awful and weak. The flight itself was miserable. I was in the bathroom constantly. I was embarrassed about it, but I told her what was going on. I had a diarrhea. By the time we landed, I felt completely wrecked. When we finally got home, I could barely make it up the stairs without getting too dizzy. I remember having to sit down halfway up because everything was spinning. Eventually, I made it to bed and just collapsed. While we were gone, her mom had been staying at our place to watch the house. So when we got back, her mom was still there. I didn't really care about it, I just wanted to sleep and stop running to the bathroom every few minutes. The next morning, I woke up feeling just as bad, maybe worse. I was still having constant diarrhea and couldn't keep anything in me. I felt super dehydrated, like my mouth was dry and my head was foggy. Around 8:30 in the morning, my fiancée woke up. As soon as she did, I asked her if she could go to the store and get me some medicine. I figured that was a pretty normal request when someone is sick. Her first response was something like asking if she had to go right away. I didn't want to sound demanding, so I said she could have her coffee, get ready, but also I explained that I felt really awful and every time I drank water, I was back at the toilet a few minutes later. I thought that would make it clear that I wasn't just being lazy, I was genuinely not in good shape. Instead of going, she went downstairs and started talking with her mom about the trip. They were chatting, eating breakfast, just kinda going about the morning. Time kept passing and I was still stuck upstairs feeling miserable. At one point, around late morning, her mom went to take a shower. I took that chance to go downstairs and bring up the store again. That's when things got tense. She snapped at me and said she needed to say goodbye to her mom first and asked why I hadn't just bought the medicine yesterday at the airport. She said she would go after her mom left. The way she said it made it feel like I was being unreasonable for even asking. By that point, it was already close to noon. I was still sick, still dehydrated, and honestly starting to feel frustrated. There's a store not far from our house. It's a 3 or 4 minute drive. Even with traffic, it would have taken maybe 15 minutes total. It wasn't like I was asking her to drive across town or something complicated. Around 12:30, I finally gave up waiting. I downloaded the delivery app and ordered the medicine. I was honestly surprised how fast it came. By about 1 o'clock, it was already delivered to the door. When it arrived, her mom saw the bag and asked what it was. I told her it was just medicine because I was sick and didn't want to go out. Her mom looked kind of surprised and said she could have gone to the store quickly and picked it up if she had known. That made me feel even worse because apparently her mom would have gone for me quickly, but my fiancée was taking her sweet time. After that, I went back upstairs, took the medicine, and tried to rest. Physically, I started feeling a little better later in the day. Mentally, though, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. It wasn't really about the medicine itself. It was about the fact that I asked for one simple thing while I was clearly sick and struggling, and it took 5 hours for anything to happen. In the end, I had to handle it myself anyway. What bothered me the most was how unimportant it seemed to her in the moment. It felt like chatting, having breakfast, and saying goodbye to her mom were all higher priorities than helping me when I was in rough shape. I started thinking about what this meant for the future. We're engaged. We're supposed to be building a life together. If this is how things go when I'm a bit sick, what happens when something more serious comes up? This also made me feel kind of small, like my needs weren't that important. I'm seriously questioning things, not in a dramatic break up immediately kind of way, but in a quiet, uneasy way. I feel like if your fiancé is like this, you got things to think about, mate. Like if a stranger felt sick and I could help them out, I would go and help them out like immediately, let alone a friend, a member of family, or anything more. And this is your fiancé we're talking about, the person that's supposed to care the most for you in the world. I don't know, maybe she didn't realize how bad the things are or something, just trying to see things from her perspective, but still, it really doesn't make sense to me. Alright, let's move on. Trash Tower Olympics. I live in one of those rental communities where everyone has their own little house, but management still treats it like an apartment complex. My family goes through a lot of trash every week, a bit too much for one bin to handle. Last year, I called the trash company to ask for a second bin. They told me to call the property manager. The manager told me to call the trash company. After going in circles for days, I finally got an answer. No one was allowed a second bin, even if we paid extra. I asked, so what am I supposed to do with the extra trash? They said, just leave it on the ground next to the bin. So I did. For about a month, we put our extra bags next to the trash can. Then management sent out a community-wide email asking us to stop because the trash company charged extra for bags left outside the bins. So I asked again about getting a second bin. Same answer, still not allowed. At that point, I gave up trying to be reasonable. Instead of putting bags on the ground, I started stacking them on top of the bin, and somehow it turned into a neighborhood challenge. Every week, a few of us tried to see who could stack their trash the highest without it falling over. We're moving out at the end of this month, and suddenly, after months of this, management finally sent an email that there will be an overflow dumpster for the extra trash. I guess the solution does exist, but that means that the Trash Tower Olympics are officially over. That's a funny one. I feel like all of these manager, apartment complex people, none of them actually want to do any extra work. They just want to lay it off to the next person. So sometimes you just gotta outplay these slackers. That's all I got for today. So until next time, see ya.